back. All right. I'm going to talk about a subject which is unpleasant. I don't know if you've been following this subway chokehold, now alleged homicide. Actually, it was a homicide because it was a death caused by another. Homicides do not necessarily mean there's a crime was committed. But he's now been charged with the crime. I'm not sure exactly what it was. I think it's a manslaughter. So my issue isn't so much with what happened, but on the, once again, racial divide and all kinds of people making this into a racial issue. I'm sick and tired of these racial issues, which means racist issues, from all sides. So it starts out, we all know what happened generally. And as soon as the word got out that this ex-Marine was responsible for the death of this person, young man on the subways who was a Michael Jackson interpreter, as soon as that word got out, the media began reporting it. The talking heads started talking about it. And what do they say about this event? What happened was that an ex-Marine killed a young black man, da-da-da-da-da. If the races had been reversed, do you think they would have been saying that a black Marine was responsible for the death of a young white man? Of course not. They talk about these things anytime there's an African American who whatever happens to him, they always make sure to say his race. If something happens to a white person, they don't say his race. If a white person is killed by a black person or whatever, they don't say a black person killed a white person. But they can't wait to say, well, they don't have to say the Marine was white. They said that the victim was black. What difference does it make what color he was? He was a human being. His life was taken by another human being. That should be the relevant facts, not that he was black, unless it was obviously motivated by race. So Emmett Till, for example, that was clearly the race of the person who was murdered was front and center of the entire story. He was murdered because he was black. There's no evidence that this person was killed because he was black. So why even mention it? But every time they talk about it, they talk about a young black man was killed. And then we had the demonstrators. Right on cue, out they come, running up and down, screaming and demanding, and they're almost all black, demanding that this white person be charged with murder or some other relevant crime because he took the life of a young black man. If those races had been reversed, you think there would have been people pouring out in the streets demanding that this black person be indicted because he took the life of a young white man? It's just pure racism. And then we had this man was accused. Now, was he a properly accused or not? I have no idea. I've had people ask me that, and I say, as a lawyer, I can't tell you, because so much of it's going to depend on state of mind, on perceived threat, on what happened exactly before, what happened during, what happened after. I will say that it concerns me that apparently he had stopped moving, the deceased had stopped moving, had stopped struggling, had actually defecated himself, and the fella kept holding on to him in a chokehold. I'm also concerned about the fact that chokeholds are inherently dangerous. Very few people know how to administer them properly. You can render somebody unconscious with a chokehold without killing them. But most people can't do that, particularly if you're much stronger and much more powerful than the person whom you are subduing it in that manner, which was the case here. So there's a lot of issues that are problematic, but they shouldn't have anything to do with race. So now what's happened? This accused defendant now, who may be very well have committed a homicide, they started a GoFundMe page for him, raised, the last I heard was like around $2 million for his defense fund. Why would you raise $2 million for a defense fund for somebody who has been accused of a homicide, or not a homicide, homicide is not murder, has been accused of a crime involving the taking of another person's life? Who else gets $2 million raised for a total stranger who's accused of taking somebody else's life in the criminal system? Well, I can guarantee you pretty much one thing, that none of those GoFundMe contributors were black. This was another example. So this thing is lining up. You hear it on Fox News where they basically talk about this fellow as though he was a hero. He may have been a hero, he may not have been a hero. That remains to be determined. But they treat him as though he was a hero. And all this money now starts pouring in, which, in my opinion, and I know this to be true, as Bill Maher says, I kind of love this segment, they say, I don't know how I know it's true, I just know it's true. Well, that applies a lot of times in life. I know this to be true here now. I couldn't prove it in court, but I can almost guarantee you that the people who are doing this who are putting in this money in his GoFundMe page, that is a backlash and a reaction against all the people taking to the streets and all the people in the media calling for this fella to be prosecuted. So as once again I break down on racial lines about something that should have nothing whatsoever to do with race. I've given this matter a lot of thought, and that's my view.